guys, how are we doing today? Today I'm going to be doing some reporting on some recent news where Mark Zuckerberg has said that Facebook is not looking to hire more engineers because, according to him, AI is starting to help their current engineers and expand their operations and make the current employees more product have better productivity. Also with this news, Facebook has also announced that it's gonna cut 5% of its workforce. And this 5% is going to be the least productive workers. So what they are calling underperformers. So I would like to help everyone out just to keep an understanding of the news and what's going on and why Mark Zuckerberg has said that AI is starting to take over, and also why Facebook is cutting 5% of their workforce, and if this is truly because AI is starting to replace employees, or at the very least, starting to help employees in the workplace and increase their productivity. So, sorry. So, something very key about Mark, that a lot of people like to listen to him like he's a prophet or he has a prophetic vision. And that's simply because he has a lot of money. So, Mark Zuckerberg, I'm not going to check, but he is worth billions upon billions of dollars. And this is a lot of work that he did in the early 2000s when creating Facebook. So, if you believe that someone who has a lot of money should be listened to as some sort of prophet where they can predict the future, that's perfectly fine. That's up to you. I don't think that because you have a lot of money or you've done what Mark Zuckerberg has done, it doesn't necessarily mean you have the ability to predict the future. At the end of the day, what happened when he created Facebook could have just been luck. Um, what happened when he created Facebook? He could have taken someone else's idea. What happened when he created Facebook? He could have used all the people around him to get the best out of his employees to make a product and essentially just screwed everyone over. These are all things that Mark has been accused of. And in this channel, I'm not really here to talk about the accomplishments or the negatives of Mark Zuckerberg's career. At the end of the day, I have an enormous amount of respect for what he's done. But the point I'm trying to make is that just because he has a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean he knows what the future of software engineering is going to be like, or what the future of his company, or how his company is going to even make a lot of money. A very good example of Mark Zuckerberg mismanaging something is actually during COVID, where he promised the metaverse. Essentially, he did this entire meta. He changed his company's name to Meta, and his entire vision was predicated on the idea that all of us would just start using the internet way more than we were using at the time. So his evidence for that, which he did have some evidence, was that during COVID, we were using the internet a lot. And then when COVID came to an end, he predicted we were going to continue to use the internet at the same rate. He then This prediction then failed, and a lot of people copied the strategy and lost a lot of money, and a lot of engineers had to be fired because of this prediction. I'm not saying that it's Mark's fault, but at the end of the day, he has been wrong about something that has cost a lot of people money, which was money related. So to listen to him and have this idea that, hey, this guy knows the future of software development or knows the future of what's going to happen and how money is going to be made is to ignore things that have happened just a few years ago. He got this whole metaverse thing wrong. We are not using the internet as much as we were. We're not using his goggles to go into the metaverse to have meetings. In fact, his company has done a return to office policy, which I don't think the metaverse is ever going to take off despite all the investment he put into it. So I'm gonna and this isn't to say like let's dismiss what he's saying. It's more to say let's think critically about what he's saying. So right now I'm gonna actually go into what he actually said because I've had this replayed several times to me and I've watched several different videos. So he said that his employees have an increase of productivity and he no longer needs to use um he longer needs to hire a lot of employees, and then the employees are just creating a lot of the products with the in-house AI tool that Meta has created. Now, I don't have access to these in-house AI tools. I don't know how good they are, so I can't make an evaluation based on that. What I will base it on is information that we've gotten from Cambridge and from other sources. What I would say about generative AI, if you have not been using generative AI to create your applications, what I would say is at first, when you use generative AI, it feels like you're saving a lot of time. And essentially, instead of me writing a full HTML page where the page renders and it looks nice, generative AI just does it. It just writes the HTML page, and I'm just copying and pasting it into my code editor and it's running. So when you first start and you're having these HTML, these CSS, JavaScript, your server, when you're having everything just generated, all the files generated, it feels like you're going super fast. The issue you then get with generative AI is that sometimes the code is wrong in very insidious ways that you can't even imagine. I'm not going to get into full details, but you will have a lot of bugs in the code that you'll fix, and then a lot of people will make the argument that you shouldn't have used generative AI and you haven't actually saved any time. And that's the main argument against you using generative AI. You use it, you don't save time, and then you think you're saving time, and I can't necessarily say that Mark is going through the same problems because I have no idea how the tests that are going. But if Mark is using the same methods that OpenAI and every other AI company, it's very hard to believe that his company has been able to increase productivity with workers. This is something we will not be able to find out or measure until we start seeing a lot of bugs on Facebook's platform. So we have no idea what is going on there, and I can't necessarily make a comment on what AI that, Facebook's internal AI, because I have no access to it. Um, in terms of Facebook, has also announced that they're laying off 5% of their workforce. What I would say is this is a strategy that they're actually copying from Amazon, and essentially what Amazon and Facebook are doing, and it's actually quite similar to what accounting companies have been doing for years in the UK, is that essentially you want to cut the bottom 5% of your workforce. I don't personally agree with this, and if I own one of these companies, I would not do this, but essentially what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to make your employees work harder, it's supposed to make people more competitive, and also they're not necessarily, they're probably going to hire a few people because the cuts are going to be too severe, and then you're going to have to hire more people who are hungrier and are willing to come in and do more work. I don't necessarily agree with this, but this is a strategy. I feel like it's a bit of an overcorrection from what Mark was doing previously. What Mark did previously is that he hired a ton of developers to specifically make sure that these developers did not contribute to their rivals' market. So essentially, he would just try to hire up developers so these developers did not go to their competitors like Twitter, Google, Microsoft. And that was his strategy, just to hoard all of the developers. And the idea behind it is when we had COVID-19 and there was a lot of use of the internet, they thought that this was going to continue to grow and that they were hiring these developers now that they didn't need, but eventually, as the business grew and internet uses would grow, they could put these developers in key positions. And now I feel like he's kind of going for the opposite of that strategy, where he's like trying to make his jobs more competitive and people vying for them more. And I do not like the language that Facebook has used, calling the people that they're going to get rid of as underperformers. I would not appreciate to work at a company where people view me as an underperformer. Because people are in different stages of their life. They might be having young children. Um, not everything necessarily has to be a competition. But what this means for us as software engineers, because this is very important. People will be like, well, the market's dying, AI is taking over, or at the very least, companies are telling us AI is taking over and they're hiring less people. I think that what Mark did when it came to hoarding developers from his competitors also affected smaller businesses. And maybe you're thinking, well, if all the developers are going to Facebook, it's fine, then you can get a job. The reality is, you need certain personnel in companies so projects can actually exist. So, for example, a company will need to hire a senior software engineer before they can hire junior software engineers. And this might be a bit confusing because you're thinking, well, they should just give the juniors a chance. Unfortunately, companies believe this. Maybe it's not true, but they don't think that a junior level engineer can handle working, creating a project from scratch and making sure it's at the level it needs to be. And unfortunately, I don't know whether that's true or not, but that is just a reality. So you, as a junior developer, cannot get your job until they hire a senior developer. If Mark is, if Facebook is just swallowing up all the senior developers, then you won't get that job because he's doing that. He's swallowing up all the senior developers, and they're not going to be enough senior developers on different projects to help you also get a job, because then they're going to need junior developers. So companies are just not going to pursue the project. So I think from that level, it's good. In terms of Facebook hiring less engineers, that's always bad because now these engineers are going to be in the market competing with the non-Facebook developers, competing with the junior developers to get those jobs. And that does sound like a bad thing. But from research that we've gotten from the UN, different global organizations, software engineering is going to increase. The amount of software engineers we're going to need is going to increase. We're going to need more big data. We're going to need more security people, and this increase is going to be due to AI and the amount of code that's going to be published because of AI. We are going to need more software engineers. So what I think is going to happen is it's going to be a good thing because there's going to be a lot more smaller companies who are going to need software engineering teams, who are going to need senior software developers, and it's going to be very helpful if Facebook isn't just swallowing all of them up to be in one place. And I have a interesting question for you. Why do you want to necessarily work for Facebook if they've just described people? So Facebooks have had layoffs before, right? And the people they've now described 5% of the people that they've kept as underperformers. Is this the kind of level of gratitude you want when you've worked very hard somewhere? I don't think so. Why do you want to work for Facebook? The reality is, you don't necessarily need to get a job at Facebook. If you're able to, that's great, but you have to remember that this is how they're treating people right now with these 5% layoffs. You don't want to work at a company that doesn't appreciate you. You always want to be in a position where you feel like you're being appreciated, where you're one of the most important employees in the company. Um, you know, these things are more important than actual money. That's just the reality of it. So it might be great to work for Facebook, but if they're gonna treat you like this, it's better to just go to a smaller company where you're gonna get more control. So that's everything I've had to talk about. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you have any worries about the job market, feel free to ask me. In my next video, I'm gonna talk about the three main reasons I believe people hate the JavaScript language. I'm gonna mix my content up. I'm gonna add a bit of news. I'm gonna add a bit of development content, and also I'm gonna add how to help people get jobs in the software market. But this latest piece of news has been just very interesting, and I want to share my thoughts on it. And I want to hear what everyone else has to say about it and what are their thoughts in terms of what they think about this kind of news of people getting laid off in big tech companies. So I could just keep going on and on, but I'm going to end the video here. What I want for everyone to do is please leave a like and comment, give me some feedback, tell me if they like this kind of video format. If you do, that's great. If you don't, I'll have other videos out. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.